Who's calling, you calling roll tonight, sir?
Ms. Atkinson,
Here.
That's what the guy
Mr.
back
Ferguson,
Here.
Dr. Fitz,
Here.
Mr. Howell,
Here.
Mr. Lockwood, Ms. Price,
Here.
Chair Davenport.
there. Here. Unless there's any changes, corrections, additions to the minutes from last month, a motion to accept, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Atkinson, second by Ms. Price.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes. Before we begin our hearing tonight, our counselor, Mr. Hoy Hodges, will tell you what you have to do in order to get your request approved. Mr. Hodges?
Mr. Chairman, on all of his applications tonight, you'd make the following matters a part of the record. The joint zoning ordinance of Bowling Green, Warren County, the comprehensive plan, the staff reports, along with any exhibits which are attached to those reports, should also be made a part of the record. And then if you would please swear in Rachel Hurt, Amy Scott, and Jenny Willoughby, and recognize their qualifications as a zoning administrator.
You ladies swear to tell the truth? Yes, sir. Thank you.
You see, the first two items on the agenda tonight are requests for a variance, and one's a request for a variance and a waiver. There's certain findings that the board must make in order for you to prevail on your request. In regard to the variance, those findings are set forth in KRS 100.243. The board must find that the requested variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, that it will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, that it will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, that it will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of requirements of the zoning regulations. And those are the requirements for a variance. There are additional findings that the board must make on the waiver, and those are set forth in section 3.8.4 of the zoning ordinance. The other three items are all requests for a conditional use permit in order to operate a short-term rental. And there are certain findings the board must make in regard to that request as well. The board must find that the requested use is not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare in the zone in which it is proposed, that it will not contribute toward an overburdening of municipal services, that the requested use will not constitute a nuisance, and that it adequately addresses the review criteria in section 3.9.4 of the zoning ordinance. And finally, that it meets all the other requirements of the ordinance. And with short-term rentals, there are specific use standards that you must also address. Now, I mentioned the review criteria in section 3.9.4. There's 9 criteria there, and to the extent that any of the criteria applies to your conditional use permit application, you must address that criteria, one of which is compatibility. And in fact, the section goes further by stating that the board shall deny your application for a conditional use permit unless you adequately address the review criteria, and again, that does include compatibility. So if you fail to address compatibility and the board's directed to reject your request for a conditional use permit. So again, the review criteria in section 3.9.4 must be addressed to the extent that it applies to your request. In order to prevail on any of the applications here tonight, you need a majority vote of those present. A pass vote has no force or effect. And if anyone's dissatisfied with the decision here tonight, you have 30 days to file an appeal, and that goes directly to a Warren Circuit Court. I believe that's it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, sir. Our first request tonight, Justin Donnelly has filed an application requesting a variance for an accessory structure to be taller than the primary structure on the property located at 843 Penns Chapel Road. And this property is zoned RE residential estate. Yes, ma'am.
I'll be quick. One more button. Okay.
Okay.
The property, thank you, Mr. Chair. The property located over on Penns Chapel Road, we had a pre-application meeting back in November. Current zoning of the property is residential estate, or RE. Current land use is single-family residential. And then here is their site plan for your all's reference, which is also available in your packet. And then looking down to their request, they are requesting a variance of 5 feet to allow a proposed garage to be taller than the existing primary residence. The zoning ordinance reference is there in the middle of page 1, section 4.4.5.E.2. The height of an accessory building or structure shall not extend above the tallest point of the principal structure. The variance, again, is for 5 feet to allow the proposed accessory garage to be taller than the existing primary residence. Variance findings are on the bottom of page 1. And then moving over to page 2, the applicant has submitted a narrative for your all's reference to address their request. And so then looking back to page 1 with some points to consider, there's just one. The variance request will not alter the character of the area, as most parcels are zoned ag or agriculture and are permitted by right to have buildings and garages taller than the principal structure. And that's all that I have for the staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the staff of the board? Any questions of the staff? Is the applicant here? Applicant here? Does the board have any questions of the applicant? Any questions of the applicant? Is there any opposition to this request? Good. Motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the request for a variance, docket number 2024-P-27, a variance of 5 feet to allow a proposed accessory garage to be taller than the existing primary residence. The testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that granting this variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulation, and it is compatible with the surrounding properties.
All right. Motion. Okay. Motion, Dr. Fitz, second by Ms. Atkinson.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes. Your request has been approved, sir. Thanks for coming down. Appreciate it. Our next request tonight, Travis Wherry has filed an application requesting a variance for an existing accessory structure to be taller than the primary residence and a waiver for the square footage of the existing accessory structure to be greater than that of the primary residence on the property located at 914 Nutwood Street. Now, this property is zoned RS-1D, single-family residential. Rachel.
Thank you, Chair Davenport. We had a pre-application meeting back in November for the property you just referenced, located on Nutwood Street. Current zoning is RS-1D, single family, and the current land use is also single family. This is the exhibit that was supplied by the applicant, and the applicant has requested 2 items this evening. One is for a variance, similar to the last application, and you'll see the zoning ordinance reference in the middle of page 1. Section 445E2 states that the height of an accessory building shall not extend above the tallest point of the principal structure in the RS1D zone. And so the first request is a variance of 6 feet 2 inches to allow an existing garage to be taller than the existing primary residence. And then the second request is for a waiver, and that is referenced in section 445E3, which states that the total area of all accessory buildings shall not exceed the floor area of the principal building. And the applicant has requested a waiver of 825 square feet to allow an existing garage to be greater in square footage than the existing residence. We also have some photos of the property for reference if we need those. This is the structure in question, and you may be wondering why we're here and the building is already there. There was a permit in 2017, and if you read the applicant's narrative on page 2, and he may want to speak more to this in just a minute, there were things that were discovered after the building basically already made it to where it's at now, but he did stop construction as soon as he was made aware of the issues. And so it's just taken this long, I think, for him to kind of decide the best path forward, and so here we are. I mean, it has been several years, but he is before you this evening with these two requests.
Did we approve a variance for that in 17? Has that been, do we approve for that building?
Not for this property.
We did
no.
not? Okay, I thought we did. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. But we do have one point for your consideration, and we've just noted that the garage is located toward the rear of the property. And you can see in the photos that there are mature trees and vegetation that line the perimeter property lines, which minimizes the view of the structure from Nutwood Street and should therefore help to minimize the impact on the character of the area. I believe that is all I have for the staff report, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the staff of the board? Board have any questions of the staff? Thank you very much. Is the applicant here? You're the applicant there. Does the board have any questions of the applicant? Got any questions for the applicant? All right. Is there any opposition to this request? Yes, come up, please.
Thank you.
We need to get your full name and address and
Sure.
swear you in.
Gary Verst, V-E-R-S-T,
And your address, please?
931 Nutwood.
931 Nutwood.
I live across the street.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Okay. So I am to believe that the building was built without appropriate permits because it was allowed to be taller than it was supposed to be in the first place?
The permit didn't actually detail the height of the building relative to the home, so it wasn't discovered until the structure was already in its current state that it was taller.
But isn't the permitting process supposed to be such that those things aren't supposed to happen?
It is, and I can tell you that since 2017, we've tried to streamline the process and address similar problems from happening in the future.
Okay. Mistakes can be made. I make them all the time. The house, the vehicle, the structure is large. I think it's larger than the front of the front property. And I think it's not just a garage. I think it's a residence on top of a garage. The owner can tell you about that, but as you can see, there's a lot of windows above the garage. So either it's a very tall garage or it's a garage with a secondary living quarters. So I don't think it's just a garage. It can easily be seen from my front porch, so it is an imposing structure. And I also wanted to point out, when the tornado came to town, I don't think any of us have forgotten that, the neighborhood of Magnolia and Nutwood had a series of meetings to make sure that developers didn't have the opportunity to exploit the destruction and to changing the character of the neighborhood by buying up properties where damaged or destroyed and making larger buildings, apartment complexes, whatever. And certainly the neighborhood was very much against that. And based upon those meetings, no developers came to town. All the houses were either rebuilt the way they were or something similar to where they were. My concern is that if this is permitted, it puts a foot in the door to allow more of that to happen in the neighborhood. And since the neighborhood has tried very hard to prevent that kind of thing from happening, this is the kind of thing that gets the attention of developers who say, well, you know, we have a sympathetic group of people here, they allowed this. Let's buy this other dilapidated house here, and this just do the same thing, and we already know this has been okay the first time, so there's no reason for it to not be approved if we apply that same logic to another building. So my concern is that this basically initiates the process whereby the neighborhood can completely change. It's not just a single building, it basically opens up the gates to change the entire neighborhood. And that's the way I see it. This is an old neighborhood. A lot of these houses are over 100 years old. Putting a lot of newer structures, either to replace older structures or to put them in the backyard, because they now can, because this one would be approved. That would change the character of this very old neighborhood, which still has mailboxes in the front doors. You know, this is a very unique neighborhood. I don't think we should be playing around with the character that's ahead for such a long, long period of time. So my personal opinion, it's not just the fact that that structure exists, which it shouldn't. It's also that if it's allowed, then others may follow.
Okay.
Any questions from me?
Any questions from the board?
Were you there in 2017?
No, I was not.
Huh?
I was not.
You were not. When did you come there?
Oh, gosh, 19 maybe?
2019?
Yes, I've been walking past the alley there for a long time, wondering why the structure was sitting there like a monument, because no one was doing anything with it. It was never being used. I never understood why, for sure. But now I do.
I misunderstood you.
Okay. Any other questions of Dr. Burst? Any questions? We'll let the applicant address your concerns, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to just
Yeah.
mention one thing regarding the upper portion of the structure. It is not permitted to be converted to an additional dwelling unit, and our staff has discussed that with the property owner, and he understands that that's not permitted by the ordinance. And so our staff has actually been inside, and it remains unfinished at this point in time. So
So
I can verify that, at least as of this evening. There are no permits or any plans or approvals for where that upper section of the building could be used as a dwelling unit. It could be finished out if someone had like a music space, or if they paint or had a hobby and it's not that the space could not be finished, but it could not be a dwelling unit, in that you could not have a bathroom and kitchen, and it could not be rented out separately.
At this time.
that addresses some of your concerns, right?
At this time.
Yeah.
It can still be altered,
No,
right?
it's not permitted to be a dwelling unit.
At this
by
time.
ordinance, no, ever.
Well, this is not permitted by ordinance, but yet it is there. So.
Correct,
That
but
doesn't, that
there's
doesn't
not a-
necessarily say it can't happen.
There's not a waiver or variance process for the owner to be able to apply for that to be a dwelling unit. It's simply not permitted by the ordinance.
Okay. I don't think of anything else to say. It's just, I've seen precedences set in the past, and if you do this one thing, then that's a chink in the armor. And then it's exploited by developers, whoever wishes to exploit the situation. And I just don't think it's a good precedence to be set.
All right. Any other questions of Dr. Burst? Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Would the applicant, yes, sir, would you let us swear you in, please? If we could get your full name and address, please?
Travis Weary, 703 Nutwood Street.
And you swear to tell the truth, sir?
Yes, sir.
You heard his concerns. Would you like to address them and give us an idea of what's going on?
Sure. I guess probably the first question I need to address is, so this structure was built in 2017, permitted originally as a two-story garage with storage above it, and it was built as such. Somewhere in 2018, in the wintertime, I was upstairs doing a little bit of framing, just thinking I could frame a couple of rooms in there as bedrooms and possibly make it into an apartment. My plan was, at some point down the line, I wanted to possibly put an apartment up there. And so I was up there doing some framing one day, and Jeremy Segura, who was the building inspector at the time, stopped by, and he said, "Hey, we can't be doing this. It's not permitted like this." And so at that point, I stopped work on what I had done, because that's kind of what we talked about. And then actually, I came down and saw Rachel in 2018 or 17 or whatever it was, and we kind of discussed what the options were at that point. And I think the variance was an option at that point, but it's just something I didn't pursue. I just had other things going on. It just wasn't that important to me at the time. Since then, it's just kind of set there as it is. It has no power, no lights. Garage doors don't work. It's got 4 garage doors, front, 2 in front, 2 in back. It's got coach lamps on the front. It'd be a great garage for somebody, but right now it's essentially a storage building. So with the permit as it was, when I went to apply for Temp on Main to get electrical service to the building itself, it was denied just because it was not permitted to be as a separate meter, which as an apartment, so to speak. There's a weatherhead located on, if you look at this picture, the back right-hand corner, which is in the very back, which would be connected to a transformer a few feet away, and it would have power and lights and the whole 9 yards. So where I'm at with it now is I still have an not functional building. It was permitted originally as a 2-story building. There was no height questions under the original permit. It was drawn as it was to scale. It's probably something that just slipped past at the time. However, my initial idea of usage changed, and I did not pursue what I needed to do to get the second floor permit, or, you know, I guess you would say, the apartment construction permit on top. That permit was denied. And at that point, I just stopped.
So
Yeah.
you understand you cannot use
Absolutely.
that building as an apartment?
Absolutely.
Is this house rental for you?
This-
It is rented?
Yes.
The
well,
primary,
Yeah, one of my good friends, he lives there by himself, and he's actually interested in buying the house from me. I own some other houses on Nutwood Street. I've been in the neighborhood since 2012, and 3 different houses. So I know the street well. I did a lot of work on the street after the tornadoes, rebuilt a lot of houses on the street after the tornadoes. I'm a contractor. You know, I can't mistake or deny what I am and what I do. You know, the garage for me, as it is right now, there's an old truck in there that's in storage, and then there's some cabinets from a couple jobs sitting around and just some random stuff. The upstairs is basically some leftover insulation that I had plans to, at one point, you know, insulate it. That way, if I pull my boat in there in the wintertime and turn the heat on it, I wouldn't have to winterize it. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I have no use for it as an apartment. I don't care anything about that. But what I do care about is just having lights and being able to use a garage door and plug a cord into it, you know, to turn a radio on or use a saw. You know, that would be nice. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
For the record, what is your plans, if we approve this, your exact plans to do with this building? What are you going to use it as?
Nothing right now. I have no plans to do any finishes on the second floor whatsoever, zero. All I want is lights and power. That's it.
You want a
So
garage.
storage.
You want a
Yeah.
garage.
garage with
I
storage?
want a fully functional garage, just like everybody else has at their house. Hit a button and open the door, close it, lock it, you know, and lights that come on at night on the alley when people walk by. That's what's important to me. The upstairs, I mean, it's been 7 years. It is
Rachel,
what it is.
if we didn't have this upstairs, he wouldn't be here, would he?
Well, the
Is
height
that,
would still
is
be a
the height
problem.
and the upstairs causing the?
It's the height and the size of the building, yes.
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 So if we didn't have that second floor in there,
Right, if it was
this wouldn't even
shorter,
be
it
here.
would be smaller and
The
shorter.
structure could still
Yeah.
be there, but not that high.
Right.
Okay.
And it was permitted originally, that slipped through. It shouldn't have been
It was
this
permitted
tall.
as a two-story structure, but I think the issue back in 2017
Was my usage.
with permit review, initially, when you see 2 stories, there wasn't an actual height listed compared to the height of the house. We recognize there are some
Differences.
flaws in the process, and we have since changed those.
Okay.
We definitely review permits in a different fashion today in 2024, so.
Got it.
Okay.
So there's actually 2 permits on. The first one was approved. I built the structure, finished it, put the siding on, painted it, you know.
So the first
shells
permit was
done.
approved at the
Second
height?
permit not approved for the apartment.
The first
And then-
permit was approved at the height that it is now?
Correct.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
didn't,
At 2 stories.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
there was no,
Measurement, no, actually height measurement, yeah,
okay.
got it.
Okay, any other questions of the applicant? Thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Welcome.
Doctor, you want to make that, come on up.
If it's okay, if it's permissible.
Come on up, please, yes.
I mean him no harm. I mean, he didn't make a mistake. You know, oops, sorry. So, I don't want him to suffer for this particularly because he didn't do anything wrong. However, I don't want the neighborhood to suffer because of what happened either. So, whatever you guys decide, you decide. You know my concerns. If the die gets cast, the water can change color completely. I do not wish to see that happen. And it would be my preference that if this is permitted as an exception because of the circumstances, there's a big plaque that's put in that thing that says it cannot be developed, it is just a garage. Because he will probably not keep that building, it will go to somebody else, they won't be part of this conversation, they won't understand what kind of agreement there has been here. He'll see that loft and says, I'm gonna make an apartment out of it. And I don't want to see that happen.
I think we can prevent that from happening, is that correct, Rachel?
Especially if you keep saying, living across the street.
well, if there was any change in use to the structure, it would require further permits. We would be copied, it would be flagged. Again, we've improved our permitting process since 2017, so.
And I'm not aware of any other structures on Covington or Nutwood that are in this same thing that's been permitted a long time ago that is out of compliance. Are you aware of any more up and down the streets there?
Oh, we've had,
Not that are not currently in compliance now.
right.
Okay. So
right.
anything else,
Yeah.
anybody else that wants to build a garage, they're going to have to come down here unless they are within the
Building
guidelines
per-
of the building permit. Okay. In other words, nobody else can do this without a proper building permit. Now, if they want to do something like this, they'll have to come down here and get a variance. And I would almost, well, we can't predict the
Can't
future,
guarantee.
but we can't guarantee.
No,
The odds of that happening are very slim, let's put it that way. Because we do like to protect our neighborhoods. We are a board of relief, but we're also a board of protection. And this is one of those fine lines where, okay, do we make the gentleman tear the structure down that is 6 foot too high? Or do we work with them and kind of let it work out? So
I mean, to tear it down would be a waste of resources. I don't want to see that.
that's
Well,
what would
that's all
have
we
to
can
happen.
That's all we can do.
That's all we can do.
If
But,
we
you know,
deny,
I'm concerned about someone utilizing it and starting the ball rolling downhill and no one stopping the ball from rolling once it starts. That is my
Understand.
concern.
Well, in our motion, we can put conditions on things that are allowed with that property. And in the motion that we do, we can put that as a condition that it cannot be used for anything but a garage, no matter who owns the property. Correct? Can't we do that?
no,
See, and that
I
would be my
doubt it.
concern.
Yeah.
Because then if you can,
it doesn't.
Well,
it'll be bought by somebody else.
You wouldn't need a condition because it's not permitted by the
Exactly.
Not permitted
ordinance.
anyway,
We
okay.
don't need a condition,
So I'm doing redundant then, okay.
right,
All right, well, I just thought we'd try something.
Currently, it could not be permitted to do that.
correct.
You cannot convert this structure into an apartment.
Okay.
Period.
So anyway, we can make sure that when he sells it, he tells the person he sells it to that that is the case. Because if he doesn't say that, this person won't know that. I know he'll take it to you guys and he'll say, I have to have a permit and so forth, assuming it goes through the proper permitting process, which I'm not convinced always takes place. But anyway,
If someone were to purchase the property and not apply for permits and just finish the structure out as an apartment, we would do code enforcement.
all right.
That's all
I
we
want
do.
to spread some cheer.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. All right, any other questions?
Well, I have can we somehow fix it so that he can have electricity to open and close his
If
garage
we
doors?
approve this, he can do it.
Yes, if this request is approved, then he can go to the building department. We would
And use his
work with the
garage.
building
And use
inspector and
his
say,
garage.
this was approved, and he can get a
We don't
letter.
have to think further than
Correct.
Approve.
to accept prove this for him to have it as a garage. Is that correct? Okay.
I don't know.
Is there plumbing in the garage?
I think there's water that comes, there is a water service on the bottom level that pops up, for stuff, like a hose spigot. As far as roughing it in goes, they never got that far.
Okay.
That was actually, if you remember, Rachel, that's where we got stopped. With the plumbing.
Okay. So it's not plumbed for, just a sink, like, okay, or outdoor faucet, okay.
That's water.
Now, the water service comes from the alley, it goes in through across, not like along the footer, and it pops up, and there's a hose bib on the inside, and it goes back for the service to the house.
Okay.
I replaced the water line at the time I was in the garage.
Okay, all right, all right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Doctor. All right, thank you, sir. Any other questions? Any other opposition? Motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for the variance and waiver, docket number 2024-V-28. Testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that granting the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulation, and that it is otherwise compatible with the neighborhood.
Proper motion.
Okay.
Second?
Motion, Dr. Fitz, second by Ms. Atkinson.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes, your request has been approved. I got a feeling somebody will be watching to make sure you don't do anything different.
Better keep your clothes on. I told him to do that.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, appreciate it. Our next request, Michael Burton has filed an application requesting a conditional use permit to operate a short-term rental on the property located at 289 Coon Hunters Road. Now, this property is zoned RR, rural residential. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting on November the 5th for the property that you mentioned. There's an aerial for your review. Current zoning is RR, which is rural residential. The current land use is single-family residential. And the applicants did supply a site plan for your reference, and we also have some photos in your packet if you need to see those. And again, the applicant is requesting a CUP to operate a short-term rental. Looking in the middle of the page is a zoning ordinance reference. In Article 5, Section 5.1, the use table, a conditional use permit is required to operate a short-term rental on property zoned RR. Below that are the specific use standards for a short-term rental. Looking over at page 2, the applicants did supply a list of conditions. Number 1, a maximum of 2 rooms for rent. Number 2, a maximum of 2 guest vehicles in the designated parking area. Number 3, quiet hours will be from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Number 4, no signage on the property. Number 5, if the property is ever sold or the applicant ceases the use, the CUP will be null and void. Below that are the conditional use permit findings for your reference. And then looking back at page 1, middle of the page for points to consider, none pending public hearing and testimony. That's all we have for a staff report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions of the staff from the board? Any board members got a question of staff? Is the applicant here? Would you step up, sir? We need to swear you in, maybe ask you a couple of questions. Can we have your full name and address, please?
Michael Burton,
And your address?
1601 Halcombe Way.
Do you swear to tell the truth, sir?
I do.
All right, as you heard the counselor in the beginning, obviously trying to put a business in a residential neighborhood that's primarily single-family residential. How do you justify putting in a mini hotel in a residential neighborhood that's going to be a business?
Well, one, there's other commercial places within 1,000 feet from where this property is. You have a church, you have stores, you have apartments just coming in right across the street from it. There's a lot of other commercial spots that's around there.
Okay, same area. All right. Any other questions from the staff of the applicant?
How many bedrooms are there?
2 bedrooms.
Okay.
It could
Apartment,
possibly be 3.
apartments is there?
There is apartments that's going in across the street. They've already started building them.
At the aerial view, you can see kind of the dirt being moved just to the east or northeast corner of the aerial view.
We're going to put in a bunch of apartments.
Is that right at the end of the where Coon Hunters ends? Is that
It's
basically pretty close?
about midways,
Okay.
about midways
All
down,
right.
yes.
All right. Okay.
So you bought, when did you purchase this property?
It was done this year.
And did you, what was your intent when you purchased the property?
At the time, where I'm real spiritually in church, I was going to let church people and stuff stay in it. But me and my daughter, we kind of decided to actually try to make it a B&B. So,
A short-term rental?
short-term
I'm
rental.
sorry. I thought you were...
No, go ahead.
And you live close by, relatively?
I do. I live off of Cave Mill Road.
Okay, so
My
you-
daughter now, she lives right down the road from
Okay,
there.
so you have
From
somebody...
this house?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Your daughter lives down the road from this
she
house?
does, yeah. She lives down by Rich Pond Market, right close to there.
So if there's any issues, you all are in town and close by,
Oh,
where you
yeah.
can try to resolve them, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, any other questions from the board or the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any opposition to this request? Do we have any opposition? Okay. Motion, please.
So, I just have one question. This is not an R1, right?
It's rural.
Rural residential, I'm not for sure.
What does rural residential mean?
Residential is one of our residential zones where sewer is not available. So the minimum lot size in this zone is 2 acres. You might often see the RE zone come before you. That's a minimum lot size of 1 acre. So this is kind of one step up from that as far as the lot size being larger.
So it has to be a 2-acre lot.
Minimum in this zone, yes. And this property, I believe, is
2.43.
2.4.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Motion, please.
I'll make a motion, we approve the conditional use permit docket number 2024-C-35 for a short-term rental with the conditions as presented in the staff report. The testimony presented in the public hearing has shown that the use is not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare in the zone in which it's proposed. The use will not contribute to an overburdening of municipal services. The use will not result in increased traffic congestion, additional parking problems, substantial increase in population density, environmental problems, or constitute a nuisance, and that the use otherwise meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And in reviewing the neighborhood, it seems to be compatible overall with the neighborhood at this time.
Second?
Proper motion.
Motion, Dr. Fitz, second by Ms. Atkinson.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes, your request has been approved, sir. Thank you and good luck to you. Our next request tonight, 17 Investments LLC, care of Nicole and Cody Adams, have filed an application requesting a conditional use permit to operate a short-term rental on the property located at 1333 Old Barren River Road. And this property is zoned RM3 Townhouse Multifamily Residential.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you,
ma'am.
Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting on November the 8th for the property that you highlighted. Current zoning is RM3. Current land use is single-family residential. And the applicants did supply a site plan, and we have additional photos for your reference. And again, the applicants are requesting a CUP to operate a short-term rental. Middle of the page, there, Article 5, Section 5.1, the use table, a conditional use permit is required to operate a short-term rental on property zoned RM3. Below, bottom of the page, are the specific use standards for the short-term rentals. Looking over at page 2, the applicants did supply a list of conditions with their application. Number 1, maximum of 3 bedrooms for rent. Number 2, a maximum of 3 vehicles in the designated parking areas. Number 3, will be rented to one family at a time. Rooms will not be individually rented. And number 4, quiet hours will be from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Below that are the conditional use permit findings for your reference. And then looking back at page 1, under the points to consider, the Board of Adjustment should consider if the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding area, including the existing single-family residential uses located adjacent to the property and in the general vicinity. And the board should consider the impact on permanent workforce housing availability in this part of the city if the existing single-family residence is converted into a short-term rental. That's all we have for a staff report. Can
Okay.
answer any questions.
All right, any questions from the board of the staff? Question from the board? Applicant here? Would you step up, please? Can we get your full name and address, please?
Nicole Adams, 2138 Small House Road, Bowling Green,
And
Kentucky.
you swear to tell the truth, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay, compatibility, how is this business compatible with the rest of that neighborhood there?
It would be compatible with the rest of the neighborhood because within 600 feet on the existing zoning map, it shows that we already have an RM4 on that street, multifamily unit. There's also a church, so there's a lot of traffic that's coming in and out for that public institution. There's also heavy industry, which is within 600 feet.
Okay, all right. Any other questions of this applicant? From the board? Go ahead.
Parking. What's the situation with parking if you have 3 vehicles?
The driveway is substantial to, thank you. The driveway is substantial to fit 3 vehicles in there for parking. And there's also a garage that could be used for parking. It would not be used for rental, but it could be used for parking as well.
But if you have 3 vehicles, is there a place to turn around without having to back out?
No, there's not a place to turn around without backing
And you
out.
just said it's fairly heavy traffic through here?
Well, there's traffic coming for the church in and out of there. Right now, we're using it as a rental, and there's 4 vehicles that are in there, and we've never had any complaints from them about having trouble backing in or out of the driveway.
But the home is a single-family, right now, rental property?
Yes, ma'am,
Not
it
a
is.
short-term, but a rental property?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay, so which it would affect workforce, housing.
Any other question of the applicant? Thank you, ma'am. Any opposition to this request? Any opposition? Thank you. Motion, please.
I make the motion to deny the conditional use permit docket number 2024-C-36 for a short-term rental because it is not compatible with the area and parking, traffic congestion would be an issue.
That is a proper motion.
Okay. Motion, Ms. Atkinson. A second, please.
Second.
Second by Dr. Fitz.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
No, and the reason being, the whole neighborhood is, RM3, if you had enough land, you could have 48 units on it. That's the zoning for RM3. So we have a lot of compatible zoning around. I hate to deprive the person of use of this land because the zoning's there. It's her right to utilize that zoning the best what we allow her to.
Okay.
In the term of taking away from single-family housing or the growth of not just investments, but people being able to buy and live, this is a neighborhood that this is what you got. And this is what you deal with. And I hate for her to be deprived of the complete use and best use of the property.
Okay.
That's my reason.
All right.
Dr. Fitz,
You asked me before, yes.
Mr. Howell,
No.
Ms. Price,
No.
Chair Davenport.
I'm going to vote no on this one also. I'll go along with what Mr. Ferguson had to say. Your request has been approved.
We need to have another motion. If you want to approve it, we'll need to have a motion approving it.
Do we have to do that?
Just so there'll be some findings. 'Cause right
Okay.
now, there was a negative motion that failed, but
Okay.
we still need to have
Okay.
some type of board action.
Will somebody make a motion to accept, to approve it?
I will.
Okay.
You have to make the
You have to
motion.
make the motion.
You have to make the motion.
Oh, I have to make the motion. I'm sorry, I thought you made it for me. Well, let's see if I can, I don't have a motion here to read, do I?
Yeah, you do.
Yes,
Oh, yes, you do.
There it is, yeah.
All right. I'm not used to reading the motion. I've always left that up to
You
Dr.
need,
Fitch.
that's something you need to learn how to do.
Let's see. Make a motion to approve the conditional use permit docket number 2024-C 2022-37 for a short-term rental with conditions as presented in the staff report. Is that good enough?
You want to address the issue of compatibility?
The issue of compatibility with the zoning in the neighborhood, even zoning greater than the existing zoning for this unit, would make this a compatible neighborhood to have a short-term rental.
That's proper motion.
Now we have proper motion by Mr. Ferguson. Second to the motion.
Second.
Second by Ms. Price.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Dr. Fitz,
No.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
No.
Chair Davenport.
Yes. Now your request has been approved, ma'am. Thank you for coming down. Our next request tonight, Michael and Tammy Hall have filed an application requesting a conditional use permit to operate a short-term rental on the property located at 195 Old Green Hill Road. And this property is zoned AG agricultural. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting on November the 7th for this property. The current zoning is agriculture, current land use is agriculture, and the applicants did supply a site plan, and we have some photos for your reference. And again, the applicants are requesting a CUP to operate a short-term rental in an existing accessory apartment that's on the property. Zoning ordinance reference, Article 5, Section 5.1, the use table, a conditional use permit is required to operate a short-term rental on property zoned agriculture. Below that are the specific use standards for the short-term rentals. Looking over at page 2, under the list of conditions that the applicant supplied, number 1, a maximum of 2 rooms for rent. Number 2, a maximum of 2 guest vehicles in the designated parking area. Number 3, quiet hours will be from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Number 4, there will be no signage on the property. And number 5, if the property is ever sold or the applicant ceases the use, the CUP will be null and void. Below are the conditional use permit findings for your reference. And looking back at page 1, under the points to consider, none pending public hearing and testimony. But all we have for a staff report, be happy to answer any
Okay.
questions.
Any questions from the staff of the board? Questions from the board and staff? Thank you, ma'am. Is the applicant here? The applicant. Would you mind stepping up, please? Get your full name and address, please.
It's Michael Hall, 195 Old Green Hill Road.
You swear to tell the truth, sir?
Yes, I did.
Do you feel like this is compatible with that neighborhood? I know it's agriculture, but most of the people up into their single family, how do you think this fits in?
It's an existing apartment where my mother-in-law lived until she passed in August, and it's been there since we started building it 6 years ago. It's been there 5 years, and it's been part of that neighborhood for that period of time.
Okay. So it has been used as an apartment?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from the applicant or the board? Any questions of the applicant? Thank you, sir. Any opposition to this request? Any opposition? Motion, please.
Make a motion, we approve the conditional use permit document number 2024-C-37 for a short-term rental with the conditions as presented in the staff report. Testimony presented in the public hearing has shown that the use is not detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare in the zone in which is proposed. The use will not contribute to an overburdening of municipal services. The use will not result in increased traffic congestion, additional parking problems, substantial increase in population density, environmental problems, or constitute a nuisance, and that it otherwise meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And in view of the layout of the property, it seems compatible with the existing homes.
Okay.
Second?
Motion, Dr. Fitz, second by Ms. Atkinson.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes. Your request has been approved, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, any old business tonight? Anybody got any old business? Hoy?
No, sir.
No old business? New business? Merry Christmas, everybody. Other than that, Merry Christmas. We are now adjourned.